My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Hi, everyone. My name is Natasha Rothwell, and I'm here to tell you about my brand new show on Hulu called How to Die Alone. I play the character of Melissa. She has no ambition, no love life, and no money, but what she does have is a reason to be the badass she was meant to be. Huh? I can't say okay. She has a reason to be the woman she was meant to be. You know what? Just tell the bleep guy to stick around, because I'm just getting started. Stream How to Die Alone starting Friday, September 13th on Hulu.
To make switching to the new Boost Mobile risk-free, we're offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
So why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Because you have nothing to lose. Boost Mobile is offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
No, I asked why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Oh.
Wouldn't.
Because you love wasting money as a way to punish yourself because your mother never showed you enough love as a child?
Whoa. Easy there.
Yeah.
Applies to online activations. Requires port in and auto pay. Customers activating in stores may be charged non-refundable activation fees.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of D-List Diaries. I'm Nicole.
I'm Gina.
And I'm Kirsten.
And today we have a very special guest joining us. So everyone, please give a D-List Diaries welcome to Jasmine Sweet, a lifestyle influencer, tech marketer, entrepreneur, host of the Sweet Life podcast, mama to the adorable queen named Rain, one of Kirsten's very dear college friends, and one of our very dear friends as of late. So welcome, Jasmine.
Woohoo!
Yay! I am so glad to be here, and I'm bringing the sweetness to the end of the day. And my tagline is Jasmine Sweet, like something you eat.
Ooh.
I always love when you say that. Nobody thinks Sweet is a real last name. So people are like, oh, is that your real name? And I'm like, yeah. So when I work with brands, they're like, can you send us your government name? Because, you know, everyone's Instagram name is like Farmhouse Cookie or something when they're like an influencer. And so I'm like, no, I am not Farmhouse Cookie. It's actually Jasmine Sweet. So put that in the contract.
I think that I thought that when I first followed you. I was like, oh, that's a cute name. Like, I didn't know it was your actual, like, government God-given name. So, but you are so sweet. So it works.
It's fitting.
I always says that. She lives up to her last name.
Yeah.
Because she's the sweetest. Well, that's good. Thank you guys. Giving me all my sweetness back today.
Well, you let us grace your podcast recently. So thank you for coming on ours and giving our listeners something new to listen to besides our voices. So we are very excited to have you. And I would love, I mean, we know all about you and all your fun stuff going on, but I would love if you could just give everyone a little maybe intro, talk about how you are an OG influencer / content creator, and you are way, in my opinion, way better than these fools out there on social media today.
Oh my gosh, isn't there a lot of foolishness in the air?
Well, we're at the peak of foolishness, I feel like, on social media now. It's like wild out there.
It really is. And it's really not even about influencers in the wild anymore. It's just people in the wild. Because it's not even that it is influencer centric. It is just people exploiting their children, exploiting themselves, just finding a moment out of nothing. Like, it's just, it's
like
wild.
Nicole said, the Hawk Tua.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I still haven't watched any of her videos and have no idea what she's about. I don't know anything about her besides Luke Bryan or somebody brought her out on stage, and that's all I know.
Zach Bryan.
Zach Bryan. Look. It's too many Bryans out here. Luke Bryan, Zach Bryan. Which Bryan is it?
Zach Brown.
Zach Brown. Look, I'm like, what happened to Garth Brooks and any of the rest of them? I'm like,
I will say I am an avid Zach Bryan fan, and I was at the show, but I was kind of disappointed. I was like, he normally brings a local celebrity on stage during his last act, and I'm like, this is Nashville's local celebrity is the Hawk Tuah girl. Like, I'm embarrassed.
She's not even a singer, right?
No, he's getting too much credit right now. Too much.
But I feel like we're giving power to these people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
social media was initially designed so that we could have this outlet to share. It's ideally like something where we post content and then the content gets exponentially viewed. And so, because Nicole's sharing it, then Gina's sharing it, then Kirsten's sharing it, and it just keeps getting shared. But now the algorithms have made it to where like we don't see the stuff we want to see. We see what we're being forced to see. And it's kind of like, who knows who the Hawk 2 girl. Yeah, I haven't seen the videos. I've heard all about it from social media, but I'm like, where are the videos of this woman? So yeah, it's tricky. But anyways, Nicole asked who I am and what I do and who I do it for.
Yeah.
Hey, hey.
I mean, you do it all. Don't you have an Airbnb too? Like, what don't you do?
Oh yeah. So I am Jasmine Sweet, and I'm originally from Jackson, Tennessee, which is like 45 minutes to an hour outside of Memphis. I went to University of Memphis for broadcast journalism, and I thought I was going to be a news reporter until I decided I was not going to cover Who Shot John. I decided that life was not for me. I interned at Channel 3 when I was in undergrad, and I was in Memphis getting up at 3:00 in the morning to be at the news station and covering stories. And I just decided that my interests were too vast, which is how I kind of landed in the blogging world, because I never wanted to just focus on just news and covering stories. But I did have the talent to do it. And that's the thing. I think I have leaned into what I am most talented at throughout my entire life. And so I turned what would consist as your reel, which is where you house like your portfolio and you send it to news stations and try to get a job for them to tell you, yeah, here's a $17,000 a year check for you to do this job. And so I was like, yeah, I can't. I mean, I'm going to have to get a job at like Macy's and McDonald's on the side to make this happen. It's just not going to work for me. So then I turned my reel into my blog, and I actually had an alias. So I was not Jasmine Sweet. I was Carmen Clay.
Oh, hey, Carmen.
I have to tag in real quick, Jasmine, because I also went to University of Memphis for 1 year. I transferred to University of Alabama, but my undergrad is in broadcast news and reporting, and I interned at Action News 5 in Memphis. So I was out on the road with Conji Anthony. All these people had the exact same thing. I was like, I am not about to go down this whiteboard of like all the crime, who's getting shot. Like, oh, it was so bad in Memphis. I was like, and like you said, I'm not going to get paid $15,000 to get here at like 2 a.m. and do reports and hope that I one day in the next 10 years work my way up to like a livable salary. It's just crazy. But that's so funny because I almost did News Channel 3 too when I was in Memphis.
And what's so crazy is it's like you don't need to go to school for that. Either you have it or you don't. And so to me, the stations also should have recognized that. And I think that's also what deterred me from going into the industry. Because like my last semester of college, I was living in DC interning for the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. And I was working on the Hill in Congressman Steve Cohen's office too. And I just remember that last semester being like, okay, I've got a few months to decide if I'm going to Bumble Hill, Mississippi or Bumble Hill, Alabama to get my start in a small town and make like less than $10 an hour, because $17,000 a year is generally like the starting point for it. And it's like they offer people that low pay because most people are just willing to be on TV for whatever. And so, and we didn't have social media popping off like it is now. So TV was kind of our outlet. Like we woke up and watched the news, and then you watch 5:00 news or 10 p.m. news or whatever. So it was kind of like, you know, the thing to want to get into if you wanted to do broadcast stuff. But yeah, I just decided that was not my direction. So I had done like 8 different internships in undergrad. I mentioned those 2 in government. I also interned for Procter & Gamble. I interned at a news station, a radio station in Memphis. So I was a radio personality too. I had interned for Target. I had interned for various different places, and this is 15 years ago. So I had all this experience in marketing, PR, and broadcasting. And then I just decided that I was going to put it all to work for my own good. And I got a corporate marketing job. So my first job was doing social media for First Tennessee Corporate, which is now First Horizon Corporate.
Oh.
And so I went into corporate marketing, but then I was like, this ain't it. Like, this could not possibly be like my life, like sitting in this.
Reality just kept hitting,
Yes.
didn't it?
Like, I'm
You're
like,
like, now I
man,
will go and be on TV. I'll take the 17 grand. I don't even care.
yeah, I'm like, hell, like literally, I'm out here like it's either I'm gonna go cover Who Shot John for 17 grand, or I'm gonna sit in this cube and not talk to anyone. And so it
For
was
22 grand.
such, yeah, girl, let me tell you how much it was. It was $34,000, and I
Not
cannot afford to
livable.
live. Even no, it's not. I'm like, why are we going to college to be living in poverty? Is the problem?
That was
So,
my first salary in marketing, and I lived in New York City, so I was literally a bottle waitress, slinging bottles of fake Grey Goose, whatever it is, to college kids so I could afford rent. So I feel you.
100% why I took my ass right down to Broadway and started bartending, because I was like, the only way I'm making six figures is to work down here. And I did for like 7 years, because I was like, I can't figure out what I could do that I enjoy and could make a decent living.
But you know what's so interesting is that our generation did explore those options. And so this new generation, I want them to explore those options, but I think they're choosing this or that. So Kirsten and I were at this influencer event recently, and one of the girls' assistants, like she told us, she was like, I just dropped out of college because I can make more money doing this one thing. And it's like our generation was like, no, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to work 3 jobs. I'm going to get out of college. I'm going to continue to work 3 jobs. Whatever I need to do to create a career path and get to the 6 figures is what I'm going to do. By all means necessary was kind of like our path. And I think their path, it's not a negative, but it is interesting to me. It's just an interesting dichotomy, because they're very much so like, I'm just going to do one thing. And I'm like, you're gonna do one thing. Like, I'm still not doing one thing. I don't know what that looks like. So it's just really interesting, because they're choosing not to go to college, or they're choosing to
follow their dreams. Yeah.
Yeah. So
they're willing to take a risk on what they believe is right for them in that season of their lives, which I do admire that about them. Like, okay, well, actually, college wasn't my thing, and I do believe that I could be more successful doing something else that I love.
When I don't think that money is the motivator anymore.
It's not,
like
not for them. Yeah.
They don't. That generation does not. Whereas, like you were saying, Jasmine, I've always been like, I'm going to make at least 6 figures. Like, that was my motivator of like, I definitely want to be happy in what I'm doing. But it was very much like, I'm also motivated by like what I can make, because I know that money is going to provide the lifestyle that I want and the security. So it is. Yeah. I mean, a lot of my employees are younger, and I've had to switch my coaching on how I coach them, because I'm like, I can't coach them on like, how much money do you want to make, because they don't respond to that. Like their goals are entirely different in that generation of what their motivators are.
It's so interesting. But back to Nicole's question about me. So I went to school for broadcast journalism, switched over to marketing, have been in marketing since 2011. I worked in marketing for 4 years before I figured out that if you have a creative degree, you're not taken seriously in marketing. And so then I decided I was going to go back and get my MBA. And so I told myself then, I'm getting my MBA before I get married, before I have kids, all of that. So I got my MBA when I was 24. And then I got married when I was 27. And then now I'm somebody's mama at 34. And so, and now I juggle many things, but the best advice one of my friends told me when I was in that phase of hustling like numerous jobs, making $34,000 a year, y'all, I was working at an ice cream shop. I was working at Dillard's. I was like managing social media for small businesses and for my sister. And I was working at First Tennessee Corporate. I probably made like $80,000, but $34,000 of it was coming from my corporate job that I was told was the right way to go. Now, it was better than making 17 grand, but I was miserable. And so I think that's what pushed me into exploring my own things. So that's kind of how I ended up in blogging. So I just kept at it. And Carmen Clay eventually switched to When I had the creative courage to actually tell people who I was, Carmen Clay switched to Jasmine Hockett, which is my maiden name. And so I used to tell people, my name is Jasmine Hockett. It rhymes with pocket.
Always got the tagline.
Come on,
What
tagline.
made you pick Carmen Clay? I must know.
Did y'all ever see the movie Carmen? What's her Dorothy Dandridge played Carmen, and Dorothy Dandridge was this beautiful black actress that I absolutely loved. And she played in this movie called Carmen Jones. Oh my gosh, y'all have to look her up. Dorothy Dandridge was like black people's Marilyn Monroe. And so
Oh wow, yeah, she's pretty.
yeah, she played this character named Carmen, and I loved it. I had photos of her all over my dorm, and then when I moved to my first little house, photos of her in there. I just
So
was
pretty.
like, just gorgeous, and her career path was so inspiring to me too, to be a black actress during her time and to make it to where she made it. And she didn't live long. She died when she was like 42, which was also like in correlation with like Marilyn Monroe, kind of to a young death, but beautiful lady. So that's why I chose her. I'm like,
Carmen
look,
Jones.
yeah, I was like, but I chose Carmen Clay instead of Carmen Jones.
Very creative.
But I also think I chose that name because I didn't have the strength or the courage to step into my calling. And so it's such a real thing. Like, I knew I could do it. I just, in my head, was like, everyone's going to make fun of me. Every time I tell people that I'm a social media manager, they laugh. Like, because I was a social media manager in 2011. So people were like, you do what?
Like, what's that?
Yeah. And now
You really are a pioneer. I mean, now no one would blink twice.
y'all, my family members were talking about me. Like, I just, like, everyone thought that I did not have a job. Like, I remember one time I was in Walmart with Alex's mom and my brother-in-law, and I was buying Alex, like, the Harry Potter DVD series or something, and they were like $5. And Alex's mom told his little brother, she goes, she ain't got no money. And I'm like,
You're like, I work.
I'm like,
social media manager.
well, no, what I wanted to say was, well, sister, two things can be true. Yes, I am broke as hell, but I just graduated from college.
Oh my gosh.
But at the same time, I was like, but I have a corporate job though. So yeah, and I have a degree, sister. But it was so interesting because I felt so demeaned all the time. It was like, oh, you failed. You didn't make it in broadcast journalism. I'm like, no, it's not about me making it in broadcast journalism. What it was Gina and I chose not to go down the yellow brick road to Fantasyland where we were like wondering if this was all going to work out. And the crazy thing about it is, Gina, now you're not getting on Good Morning America unless you have like some big name anyways. You're not getting on the Today Show unless you're Jenna Bush Hagar. You're not, like, it's
You're
just
not working. There is no working your way up. Like you
no, it's like, who is it that you know? Whose kid are you? Pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So, what NFL team did you play on? But like now it just doesn't look like that. So,
Well,
yeah.
and the it's just exactly what you were saying. Like I'll never forget growing up and like waking up, and I would walk into the living room and my mom had just turned the news on, and then you get home, like you said, at 5 p.m. and you watch the news. So like for us growing up as kids, like that sounded like such a cool job. It's like, oh, I want to be on the news. Like I want to report what's going on. And now it's like nobody watches the news. Like
Yeah, and then also too, now people have like 1 million followers on Instagram, so people are more influenced by some of the people on Instagram,
and they're
who
getting
are,
their news from
they're getting their news
anchors
from
on
those
Instagram.
people, and watching those YouTube channels. So it's like now you are your own person, and people know you and they see you out because you have 1 million followers, and they're like, oh my gosh, I follow your fashion, or oh my gosh, I follow your charcuterie board page, or oh my gosh, I love that you're a mom. I can relate to so many things. So people are more influenced by some of those great influencers on Instagram and YouTube and all those other platforms.
For sure. And I also want to point out that a news package, for anybody who's listening to this and doesn't know, is usually like 30 seconds. And so while you've gone out and you've interviewed Who Shot John for 8 hours. Hours.
And the one-man band. Let's also talk about that. Like they
Woo,
they want to hire you at these stations and no shade on anyone that works for the news. Like, I actually have several clients that are anchors and they love it and it's like their passion, and that's great. But like, I remember I went through so much work in school, and I started doing reporting when I was like 13. Like, I won a student Emmy for sports reporting when I was in high school. So like, I did it for 10 years when I decided like this isn't my path, because I started so young and had the opportunity to do that. But you have to sell yourself as what they call like a one-man band. So when you come in, you better be prepared to carry your camera, ladies, like they had at Married at First Sight, the big ass cameras. You have to shoot all your own footage, set up, be the reporter, bring it back, edit it all, and put it together for what Jasmine is saying is like that 30-second package. So it's like a full day or 2 days of work for like a very small snippet of what's edited together.
And you guys coming from a reality show background that each episode is like an hour and a half, know it's impossible to fit a real, truthful, and authentic news story into 30 seconds. So when I started to come into myself and really think about it as like a young woman, I'm like, man, there's some ethics here that I also am struggling with. And I'm the same way with social media now. I'm just like, I'm not easily influenced by what I see on social media because it's so manipulated into 7 seconds. It's so manipulated into 10 seconds or whatever it is. So I'm like, it's just something to think about. But I think also the positive is it opened up a trustworthy door for us to perceive information on social media. And so it's like, well, we don't have to just get it from the news. That doesn't make it true. We can also watch the 10-second reel on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and also get the same style and the same facts and stuff. So yeah. So I shifted away, and then I also grew up doing pageants. So I actually did Miss Memphis 3 times, and I got third runner up all 3 times. And the director, I know, it was the lucky 3. I don't regret it at all. The director wanted me to be her Miss Memphis. And then what's funny is in 2022, she asked me to come back and judge Miss Memphis. And when I got to sit on that side of the table and actually see how the women are judged and the calculations, I was like, oh, okay. This is why I kept getting bumped down to number 3. Because basically what happens is they finalize the scores. The girl with the highest score can then get tossed to like the bottom. So just because you end up with the crown doesn't mean that you didn't have the highest score, because basically they throw out the scores. So top 5, throw out the scores, mix them up. Each judge has to rank who they want for queen, first, second, and third. And then they choose a queen based off of that math. And to me, the math wasn't mathing. Because even when I judged Miss Memphis like 2 years ago, I was like, now this is why the hell I kept ending up in 3rd place. I'm like, I was Miss Memphis, and that's on period. And I think Shay knew that too. Shay will tell you that. I think she's like the director of Miss Memphis, because that's why she asked me to come back a whole decade later and judge the pageant, because every year she would be crying at the end and like hugging me, saying, I just don't know what happened. Aww. And I'm like, well, you didn't pick some dude judges. That's what the hell happened. But it's okay. I think that also helped me to cultivate community in Memphis. It helped me to really get my name out there and also find my community. So that's how I've built my audience, is no matter where I go, I'm active. When I lived in DC, I had a whole community in DC. I lived in Louisville, a whole community in Louisville. Then I came to Nashville 8 years ago, boots on the ground, like whole community in Nashville. A lot of people I went to college with lived here, but then I started to meet other people just by getting out and doing other things. So I engulfed myself in the influencer world, and I just continue to grow my audience. And so I've been at this for over a decade. And that's why I'm an OG influencer, because I encompass a lot of different experiences, and I did not arrive here overnight. And some days I wake up and I'm like, Lord, why am I here? Why am I here with this platform? because it feels like sometimes when I look around, everyone is excelling at a rapid speed. Like I looked at this girl's Instagram video today and she literally grew from like 0 to 14,000 people in a couple of months. And I'm like, man, like I wish it was that easy for me. Like
It is if you buy your followers.
Right.
I'm like, I've been out here doing pageants, working multiple jobs, doing community service, meeting people in real life, shooting content with a tripod. And I'm just like, these people are literally making fast content and getting fast followers. And that's just not what it looked like for me. So,
But you're putting out quality work and your work is authentic. So that's the reason why you have the community you have and majority of your community. Those people, they're putting out quick things, buying followers, doing all kinds of who knows what. And they're not staying true to themselves at times. And you and I both see that all day, every day. Like you stay true to your brand and who you are and what you represent. So
y'all, I refuse. I'm like, I don't care if I lose it all. I'm like, I just cannot. It's kind of like, it almost feels like who here is willing to sell their soul to get some followers? And then at the end of the day, what do you do with them? I actually had like a 2-hour phone conversation with one of my friends, Danielle. She's an influencer in New York. And we're actually going to work with P&G next week in Cincinnati. And we did the same thing last summer. So she and I were catching up last night because a couple of the other influencers that worked with us last year, they didn't get invited back this year. So we were just talking about like why, like just guessing why. And so Danielle and I just both came to the conclusion that like she and I have built sustainable brands. Like people have watched us grow up. And so people have watched me from 21 to 34, like grow up on social media. And so I think when brands see that, it's not like a fast fleeting group of folks. It's a group of folks that like they can reach out to that they know have walked alongside me. So I think that makes a difference because Danielle and I both were like, man, some of these influencers have like millions of followers and they're not getting brand deals, not getting any traction.
For sure. You definitely see those overnight success stories, but in the end, they just don't end up being as credible. I know, whether you're working like a 9-to-5 job or just trying, working that 9-to-5, trying to get the promotion, or you own your own business or whatever it may be, like there are those that, like you, Jasmine, that are out there in the trenches, like doing everything you can to just like make it work. I've definitely been there as a business owner too. And sometimes you have to like shake off, for me at least, a little bit of that jealousy of like wanting it to come easy, but then knowing, okay, God's taught me a lot through this and I'm not going to give up. So I don't know. It's interesting to see the difference in looking back on your story and knowing how much you've had to go through to get to where you are. As opposed to those that just wake up overnight and have the 1 million followers. And at the end of the day, perspective is not reality because it's easy to look at social media and you never know like who has had that success quickly and who's been working forever just to try to get there and really make it work.
It's like you never know somebody else's story or how they got to where they are. And that's why many years ago, I had to stop comparing myself to people on social media because I'm like, you never know how someone got to where they are. So it's like good that we all have our own journeys in life because it is like a learning lesson too. And it does make you be more grateful for what you have and more appreciative because like, had you not gone through what you went through and you got everything fast, you wouldn't really have an idea of what it looks like, to really work hard for something and appreciate it.
And someone out there has definitely had it harder than me too. So I've sure heard myself of that. I'm like, there are people that I think about sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh, what would it be like if I had to legitimately like close my business? Like that would be terrible. Like I would have felt like I lost everything. Like I've invested so much money, so much time. It's not happening. Like everything's good. But there are people out there that have like invested their whole life into something and then it just doesn't work. And they're like, oh my gosh, I've spent my whole life in this. So it's just a matter of, I think, perspective and positivity and knowing that you're going to have to jump through hurdles and it's not always going to be easy, but the only way to fail is truly just to quit, honestly. And we ain't doing that.
But I do think you do have to be willing to risk it all, though. Like, you kinda have to be delusional and a little bit, like, risque with your moves when you're an entrepreneur. You have no clue how it's gonna work out, and you're not in control. So, I actually was listening to Sarah Jakes Roberts' book. Oh my gosh, I just started Power Moves today, and I was driving to get rain, and this one part popped up that I needed to hear today, and she literally said, like, "The best meat that you're ever gonna eat has been marinated. It's been marinated in the right spices and seasoning and just all of it." And so she was like, if you're in this season of just like wondering why everything is simmering and you're just marinating, like that's where you are because you need to taste good when it comes out. And so I thought that was so good because I also have felt like that in different seasons of my life. And so that's why I started the Sweet House podcast because I bring people on to talk about their journeys. Like, how did you all end up here? A lot of the questions that I was asking you all, like around marriage and love and like just where you are, that is such a huge proponent of our lives and our lifestyles, your love life. So I thought that was such a cool aspect to bring you guys on the Sweet House to talk about because everybody, for the most part, has had some sort of story with love that kind of set them back and then propelled them forward in some shape, form, or fashion. So I wanted to open the Sweet House podcast as a way to connect with my followers where I am sharing real stories. So you're not just going to social media and thinking like, oh, that person just made it. Like, no, let's talk about like the breakup you went through that helped you make it. Or let's talk about like that man you were dating that ruined your credit, but somehow you made a way back. Like, or like I've had people tell me some of everything on the podcast, and it's just been really interesting. Like Bishop Walker, I didn't realize his first wife had died of cancer, and so having him on talking about like how he rebounded after something like that, and now has one of the largest churches in the United States, and just like how they made it through the pandemic. It's just all these stories are what I feel like need to be on social media.
Yeah, give us back some authenticity.
I crave that. Honestly, I've not been a fan of TikTok because it's such fast content and it's just not deep to me.
I agree.
I just like, I like want some real stuff. And people are like, oh, but that is real. She showed up with no makeup on.
And she has a filter on.
I'm like, that's not real. I don't have on any makeup right now. I'm like, people don't wear makeup. Does that make them real? If I want to put on a face looking like RuPaul, am I not real too? People equate realness to being dusty and down and out. And I'm like, well, how come we can't be on top and also be real, but also tell the backstory to being on top?
Yeah.
What does that look like? Yeah. So that's why I started the Sweet House and started bringing all kinds of people on from different walks of life. I always ask if people feel like they've made it. And so I had the Titans GM on and I was talking to him about that. I was like, you're the first Black GM working for a woman owned organization, she's like the only woman owned organization in the NFL, which I didn't know. And he was like, yeah, I didn't think about it until I got the job. He goes, my aunt called me and she was like, you're the first Black GM. And he was like, I just had to sit there with it for a minute. He was like, I've been through like this journey and that journey to get here, so I didn't realize it. So I think it's really cool for people to share those stories.
That's amazing that you get to talk to these types of people. What have been like some of the coolest guests, I guess, that you've had on your podcast other than us?
Oh, I have a really cool one to share. So I had the Fisk University gymnastics coach on, and Fisk was the first HBCU in the United States to get a gymnastics team. So I had her on last year. This year she called me and she was like, I need some help. I have a girl I'm trying to recruit, and she went to school for broadcast journalism, but she pretty much said the same thing you said about it. And she was like, I'm trying to get her to Nashville because she wants to get her master's, and I'm trying to get her to Nashville and get her to go to Fisk, and she wants to continue doing gymnastics, and I need you to talk to her. So she was like, whatever you say, I trust you with this. And I thought that was really cool because I brought her on my podcast to share her story, which, by the way, she's like broken historical records as a gymnast like in the 90s. And then now she's like breaking records again by coaching their first HBCU gymnastics team. And then she calls on me to help her with recruitment. So I get on the phone with this recruit, and I was just talking to her about all the cool things that people in Nashville are doing, just all the creative ventures that we have here. Like, people are making a way out of no way in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, everything from, I know people like you, Gina, who have a hair salon, or people who've opened up a coffee shop, or the guy who started the peach truck. I mean, he was growing peaches in his backyard. Like, I've just met so many cool people in Nashville doing all kinds of cool stuff. And so I was telling her all about how Nashville is this place where you can come and kind of just figure it out. And so she committed to coming to FIST.
Wow.
Yeah, and I just feel like all the steps are aligned. Like, you just got to keep going up, just like one step at a time. And like, it's so cool to see how if I weren't stepping into my calling, that would have never happened.
Mm.
That's awesome. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. That made me so happy. So moments like that give me the assurance that I'm on the right path. But I do think for anybody who's listening, if you're looking at social media, we all feel like shit some days looking at social media, even those of us who do it. So, yeah.
That's why I always take a little social media break. I'm like, okay, let's take a break from this and find something else to do, or go connect with another person, like have some real life interactions and conversations.
Yeah, because it's a very real thing. Social media fatigue, it's all very real. And have some real friends. And yeah, internet friends are great, but even try to connect with those friends off of the internet. People that I've met on the internet, I have met them in real life. Like when I went to Miami, I met one of my influencer friends in 2019. And then this year when we went to Miami in May, her husband shot our photos. So it's just, you never know where those relationships are going to go. But I would definitely tell people to take your life off of the internet. Like, live it on the internet, but also take it off of the internet.
The September stock-up sale is on now at Whole Foods Market. With kids back to school and busy workdays, you can save big on all you need to streamline your home and routine. Get huge deals on supplements and packaged coffee to energize and power through pickups and drop-offs. Next, save on organic chicken breast and Honeycrisp apples to master your meal plan. Then scoop up ready-to-heat and eat meals for when you just can't. So stock up and save at your local Whole Foods Market through September 17th.
To get people excited about Boost Mobile's new nationwide 5G network, we're offering unlimited talk, text, and data for $25 a month.
Forever.
Even if you have a baby.
Even if your baby has a baby.
Even if you grow old and wrinkly and you start repeating yourself.
Even if you start repeating yourself.
Even if you're on your deathbed and you need to make one last call.
Or text.
Right, or text. The long-lost son you abandoned at birth.
You'll still get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile.
Forever!
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
Forever.
You know something else I hate? When people say social media is a highlight reel, I'm like, well, man, what kind of life are y'all living? Because my life is like really well off of social media. Y'all gonna hate me. I feel like a photo doesn't do my life any justice. I mean, I have the best times off of social media that I do not even capture. And I'll call Kirsten and I'm like, girl, how about Rain put on these gold heels to go?
Oh my gosh. He was so fancy that day. I was like, yes, ma'am, you better go to school slaying and learning at the same time. I love it.
So I was talking to Kirsten today, and Kirsten said, hey, girl, and Rain was in the back seat, and she goes, hey, girl.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. That's so cute.
Treating her well.
So it's just such a, like, I don't know. My husband was outside today with his shirt off mowing the yard, and I was like, woo, Lord, honey, I'm over here feeling like Stepford Housewives.
Out here living the highlight reel every day.
Yes, and none of it's on the internet. And have y'all ever tried to take a picture of, like, the moon or the sun?
Yes, I have
It's not
several
the same.
times. The sky, yeah.
Yeah, that's how I see. That's exactly how I see social media. I'm like, it is not the same. Like, life off of social media is so much more like vibrant, and I want everybody to look at it that way. I think it's a constant conversation trying to tell us otherwise. Like, it's like a thing now to be like, "Oh, Instagram's a highlight reel." I'm like, "For who?" Somebody like, "For who?"
This might be a little cynical, but honestly, the more followers someone has, the less credibility they have in my eyes because, like, Jasmine, for example, you are and I know you, but before I knew you, I would look at your Instagram and you would post that you went to a restaurant or you went shopping somewhere. And even though I didn't know you yet, I still took your recommendation as this is someone who is relatable to me and she's at this restaurant. The food looks amazing. I'm going to go to it and try it out, regardless of how many followers you have. But if I were to see that same post by someone who has 600,000 followers, I'm like, okay, they definitely got paid for this. They don't even know half their followers. They didn't even eat that food. Even if they did, even if it was their, organic night out and the best meal they've ever eaten, I'm not trusting it as much because I'm assuming that they're curating the
do that,
perfect
yeah.
reel because they were paid or got this, whatever brand endorsement. But I prefer the people who maybe have less followers, but who put out content that I find more relatable because even if you have 2 followers, if I'm one of them and every recommendation you've given
Yeah.
is good, I'm going to keep following them. So I do feel like more followers, to me at least, doesn't always mean better recommendations or I'm less influenced.
I'm not easily influenced. Are y'all, Gina?
I'm not typically, no.
Me either. I'll go take a look at it and read the reviews, and if I feel like I like it, then I'll buy it. But just because someone else is like raving over it, I'm like, well, that may not be for me. And if it is for me, then I'll buy it. But
I'm easily influenced. Like I will see a product and buy it, but only from the right people. Like if one of you said, you need this book, it's the best book I've ever read, I'm not even going to ask what it's about. I'm going to order the book.
Listen, I already bought that Power Moves book, so maybe I am easily influenced.
I influenced you. I have to shout out my friend Danielle. She's in Houston, and her tag is the Hangry Houstonian. And Danielle is somebody I met her on an influencer trip that we did with South Walton Tourism Board in February. And she is somebody who is a food blogger, but she's cultivated this audience in Houston that really trusts everything she does. She has like 200,000 followers. But Danielle is just so like nitty gritty down to earth, sharing the details. I mean, she will tell you if the food isn't good. She's like, look, you don't want to go here. The line's going to be extra long. And so when Houston was having that hurricane go through there and Houston was like pretty much underwater, y'all, when I tell you she turned into the eyewitness reporter, homegirl literally was flying her drone out of her window and like literally posting footage, telling people where to go to find emergency help, telling people where to go to like when their power was out. She was using her platform for good. And so, but the way she creates her content, it's all about the food, but it's also still like connecting her community. It's connected to her community in a way that when something like a hurricane or anything catastrophic comes about, people are coming to her as a resourceful person. And I think the way she does it is such an art.
that is incredible. I feel like that's literally what I visualize as an influencer, like someone that's actually using their platform for good, like for updates in the community and really helping people around them. I mean, not to mention food. That's amazing. I've literally always wanted to have like a food Instagram. I don't know why. I want it to be like an alias. It doesn't even have to be me, but just to go around restaurants and like update people on the coolest restaurants in town.
But why can't it be under your name? Do you think people wouldn't take it as seriously because you're the hair girl or the Married at First Sight girl and not the food girl?
Are you afraid of what people will say?
No, not at all. I think I just love the Gossip Girl aspect and love food. So,
And that's why I'm glad that I do have 2 pages. I have a page for my real estate page and I have just my personal page. And I feel like on my personal page, I can do whatever I want to. If I want to talk about traveling or food or fashion or fitness, like it gives me that flexibility to do so. So maybe you just may have to create you a personal page.
it's literally just the reporter in me. I think I just want to report on everything. I want to tell everybody about hair. I want to tell you about food. I want to tell you about travel. The list just goes on and on, but we'll see. Maybe someday.
Jasmine, what gave you the confidence to become Jasmine Sweet and stray away from Carmen Clay? Like, was it a light bulb moment, or you were just like, I want to be me, forget the alias?
I think I was like, I want to be me, forget the alias. I had gone through a couple of corporate jobs. I had worked at First Tennessee in Memphis. Then I moved to Louisville to work for Humana. And then I came back and I was working on my MBA, and I was managing I was a manager for BCBG in Memphis while I was working on my MBA. And then I was still working for my sister. My sister's an international recording artist. If you guys don't know, her name's Valerie June, and she's everywhere. And so I was traveling with her a lot too. And just, I am so grateful for her for taking me with her, because she didn't have to. And so one time I was in New York, and she took me to CBS This Morning with her and VH1 with her, and just all these cool places. And so I think I've always been inspired by people who are willing to just step into it. I think that gave me the confidence, is like just my curiosity to create a lane that didn't exist. And so I did it. And I just, even with people, I think I got tired of people too being like, oh, so you're a social media manager. What's that? What's a real job? And I just was like, I'm going to show you, because that's just how I am. I'm like, let me show you. Like, even when I started my podcast, 0 listeners, like, maybe a few listeners from me driving people from social media. But I mean, I got laid off from iHeartRadio, which is like supposedly the number one podcaster in the world. I won't even go into all that, but anyways, ... And then I had already recorded the Sweet House twice before, within like from 2019 to like 2022. I'd recorded it twice before. It didn't work out. I had bad producers, whatever. So then I got laid off from iHeart. And the month that I got laid off from iHeart, I was actually talking to Aaron about recording my podcast. And literally the day my boss called me, I was at Restoration Hardware having drinks and a great meal with my other colleagues. And he called me and was like, you got a second to talk? He's like, oh, we're going to lay you off today. I'm like, okay, great. So then I go back to the table, and my coworkers were like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm fine. And like, I was like, look, I'm ready for what's next. And so I literally called Aaron when I was leaving lunch. I said, bitch, it's time. It's time.
You needed that push.
I was like, it's time. Like, let's go. Like, I don't have anything to lose. That was my 3rd time being laid off from a job. I was like, here's somebody who is highly educated. I'm literally doing everything. Good luck finding another me. You're not going to find somebody with my work ethic, my tenacity, my creativity. Like, you can't find me somebody who knows how to wife and bust it wide open, and knows how to mom, and like, and also knows how to manage a business and do all of these things. You find me somebody. Because you're not going to find anybody. So good luck. So I didn't feel any type of way. I just was like, every time it's happened to me, I feel like I was like, whatever, I'm stepping further and further into my calling. Like, I'm just like, I'm not going to be out here relying on this to make a way for me, because there is a reason why this keeps happening. And so I think it's really for me to trust myself, because I've also had like lots of moments of self-doubt, which also Sarah Jakes Roberts even starts the book like that. She talks about how something has hit all of us and just made us feel powerless. It's like it's some sort of rejection. Like, maybe you didn't get the job, maybe the boyfriend walked away, maybe the husband wasn't doing what you wanted him to do. Something has hit all of us at some point. It sometime in your day or in your week or however frequently it has happened, to the point where you felt powerless. And so I think I have just decided, stepping into like who I am supposed to be, when I said Jasmine Hockett and then I got married and became Jasmine Sweet, that I was always going to be who I'm supposed to be, no matter what. Like, I'm just out here creating. And influencer was not a job. I mean, we were called bloggers or content creators. It wasn't. Influencer just became like the title within the past few years. So I'm like, y'all, I was doing this before it was called influencer.
I love that, Jasmine, and I love that for you. And those are definitely power moves that you made too, because it's like you put yourself in those positions to where you're able to fund your own podcasts and have like powerful people come on your podcast. You've had the mayor, you had GMs, you had multi-million business owners. Like you created that path for yourself by stepping out on that faith and just knowing that you believe in yourself. And so I do commend you for that. And I'm also always a proud friend rooting for you. So,
Oh, I just love you.
yeah, I love you too.
I also hate the question, what do you do? I feel like it's such a weird question, and I get it a lot. It's just really interesting to me. I was actually at another kid's birthday party, and one of the cousins of the family was like, she came up to me and she was like, "So what? So do you just do influencer stuff?" And I was like, pretty much, because I don't even feel like explaining to you what all I do. So at that, when people ask me and they ask me in that connotation, I am immediately like, I'm not doing this with you. She was like, so how do you step away from it? And I'm like, well, I don't really step away from it because it's like an authentic sharing outlet for me. So I just share whatever it is I'm doing, like, and I feel compelled to share for that day. And then I was like, I'm also a marketer by trade. But then I also have had to learn how not to pitch myself, which is hard when you have worked in corporate America and you're constantly pitching yourself. I mean, I get on conference calls. I'm currently working on this contract now. And I had a conference call yesterday at 4:30, and I had to put some bass in my voice.
What were you saying? Please tell us.
My bass in my voice is just, I have to get very proper and just very direct. I'm very much so. I'm like, well, did you check the Monday board? Did you look at your calendar invite? Because the details are in there. And then, like yesterday, I was like, I have rain because my husband has a dinner meeting tonight. So I am on this call, but my child is in the bathroom in the toilet. Let's get to the point here, folks. We can't be on the phone all night. But I think I learned how to advocate for myself. But what I was getting at with like having to do that is like you live on the defensive sometimes when you're in corporate America. You're just like ready to play like defense and fix the problems. And so then when people ask you stuff in real life, you're kind of like you get ready to start pitching yourself and all your accolades and let them know what time it is. But then I've had to learn that, I don't have to let you know what time it is. You know, you got to watch. I don't have to let you know what time it is. It is okay for me to just exist and like be who I am. So, and it's always interesting because they're like, well, I followed you on social media. And then it's like, they want you to go down the rabbit hole of how you got into social media, which I'm fine talking about, but then that's the only time where I feel like I'm not able to disconnect. It's like then they want to pick your brain session, and it's like I'm at the birthday party. Then I feel bad because I'm like, well, I don't mind sharing, but like I just feel like I'm at the birthday party, Any other time I'm like, yeah, let's do it. But I'm like, I'm at the birthday party. So when do I get to turn off? And then as far as like working in app marketing, it's so complex that when I do try to explain what it is to people, like this lady at the gym this morning asked me, she goes, are you like a full-time influencer? I was like, yeah, I am. And she was like, so like, what else do you do? And I'm like, well, I also do app marketing. And she goes, who? Like, what kind of marketing? App marketing. Like all the apps that you have on your phone, there is somebody doing all of the marketing behind all the apps on your phone. And so she goes, oh. So I was like, she was like, so what all does that entail? And I'm like, ma'am, Jarrell just told me I got to do 20 lunges. I can't. Like, I have to
Like, it's
do
not an interview.
yeah, I have to do my 20 lunges. And it's like it's too complex to like actually explain. I think it's hard to just say like I'm an influencer because the world of influencers is tainted. And so it can sound kind of like minuscule, like, oh, you wake up and take photos every day. And so it's like, yeah, but it's so complex. I mean, I just got done editing something today and I'm like, good Lord, like it was like a whole situation. And then I had a conference call for the PNG thing that I'm going to do next week. And then it's like I have to plan outfits for everything that we're doing while we're there. And then I still have a life, so I have to make sure that my daughter has a sitter next Thursday night. And just like, there's so much work that goes into anybody's work. It's not just work. And so to me, to get so to expect somebody to get so granular is interesting to me.
No, I totally agree. It's always such a weird conversation when people want to know specifics. But speaking of specifics, I would love if you could share a funny or embarrassing story about Kirsten from your college days. I think the listeners would love that as
Oh,
well.
wow, Nicole.
Oh my gosh. Funny or embarrassing? I can't really recollect like an actual story, but I used to get my hair done at Kirsten's house because her best friend was like the college hairstylist, Jasmine.
Everybody coming there. Oh
Yes.
my God.
And when I tell y'all, like, we used to have a time, that was just like, I'll keep it brief, but that was just so much fun because that's when we all really connected, like back in the day. And we used to stay up and do hair and talk and just laugh for hours. And we just had the best time.
Those are always so fun.
But you know what? It was such a sentimental time for all of us that I don't even think we valued like we should have. And I say that because it's like now we're all adults and we're pressed for time and we don't even have time to like sit down and sit around and do hair and laugh like that. Like, when else are you going to do that in your life? So if there are any listeners of this podcast that are like 20 somethings and you got all the time in the world and you don't think you got the time, but you got it, you need to sit down and play hair salon, play house with your friends, sleepovers, all of it. Because when you're in your 30 somethings, it's very rare that we're all like getting together for a sleepover.
Can we do an adult sleepover? Like, we won't stay up all night. I'm prefacing this by saying I'm still going to bed at a reasonable hour, but what if we got an Airbnb for a night and we got little cute pajamas and had popcorn and watched movies?
I would love that. Honestly, I would love it. I feel like let's slow down time and resort back to those moments that make us like nostalgic and just grateful for the friendships and the people that we have around us.
That would be fun if we did that. That would be so much fun. We will have to plan that pajama party.
Let's do it.
Play all the games, make the charcuterie
Ooh.
boards.
Kirsten wants a charcuterie board. It's top of mind for her.
I know. I keep talking.
I want a charcuterie board too. I haven't had one in a while.
We could get old board games like Girl Talk or Mall Madness.
We can do all of that.
I'm getting really excited.
All the good stuff.
Before I get into the sleepover idea, does anyone else have any pressing questions for Jasmine? Because I know you got a baby girl on the potty somewhere.
Mr. Sweet has been doing the best job. I told y'all I handed him to her when I walked in the house. Well, he actually came back out to the car again to get her. So he is just such a sweet daddy. I mean, I am so blessed.
What is your best piece of marriage advice?
Yeah, that was what I was about. That's a good question.
My best piece of marriage advice is to lay it all out there on the table. I mean, everything. Communicate to your deepest core as much as you can, because even as much as you communicate, there is still so much about yourself or your partner that you don't know and that you will learn over time. Alex and I are 14 years in and we tell each other everything, and this is a funny story. He would say it, but we were in Miami 3 months after we had rain. We decided we were just going to go take a little weekend away, and he decided to get these marijuana gummies. And he ate the whole pack.
Oh my God.
And we went to see, I think we went to see Batman or something. And they have this movie and dinner theater in Brickell. And then when we got out of the movie, he was in some rough shape. And we went back to our hotel room and he was like, I gotta tell you something. And I was like, oh hell. I'm like, what you gotta tell me? And I'm like, and what he told me was something that he had kept to himself that happened in his life that was really impactful on a lot of stuff in his life. But I'm like, I said to him, I was like, We've been together 13 years, and you're just now telling me this shit.
The edibles.
Look, buy him some edibles every other year. Like, hey, I got you a gift. Here you go.
Look, but it's just so but that's a funny way about it. But Alex and I, like, I mean, that's how we've dealt with any issues that have arisen. Like, I've always been like, I am not afraid to say what I need to say, because if I say what I need to say and you walk away, then we weren't meant to be. Like, I've always lived by that creed with the two of us, and he has too. It's like, you need to be able to digest what I'm saying to you in love without like it coming off as negativity, or just, yeah, there's a way to say it, but we tell each other everything. But there is like something, I feel like the constant communication is also what keeps it hot and fresh. Like, it keeps the love flowing because you're constantly just opening yourself up. You're constantly vulnerable and opening yourself up to somebody that you've devoted your life to. So I don't know. And I don't think marriage is hard. People say that all the time. I'm like, I will not adopt that in my house. I've been married for 7 years. I don't think it's hard. I feel like we have had moments of contention, but they're moments and we work through them. And I guess some fleeting or fluffy advice I'll give is to put photos of you and your husband on your wedding day or doing happy things all throughout your room. Like, I have these huge printouts from our wedding day on the wall in our bedroom. I have a shadow box with like my garter in it that's like hanging on the wall in our bedroom. So your bedroom should be like your safe haven for you and your husband, your sexy place for you and your husband. Like, make it like a temple for you and your husband. So, yeah, it's like that's your place. That's y'all's home. That's where you reconvene every night. That's where you wake up to the sunrise every day together. Like, I know what kind of life I want to live with Alex, and I'm not going to settle for anything less than that. Like, to me, that's like the fight that I'm willing to give, but it doesn't feel like a fight. It just feels so natural.
I love that.
The sweetest. I feel like that's some really great advice, though, and I feel like people should definitely value their marriages in the way that you do. That's amazing.
I don't know. I've always hated when people are like, marriage is so hard. I'm like, but it really should not be that hard.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that too. I feel like, I mean, I can't speak from the marriage aspect, but just like living with the significant other and being together at, we're right at like a year and some change, I guess, almost a year and a half. And it's just like easy. It's easy to live together. I look forward to hanging out with him every day. Like, we really don't have any problems. And I always feel super lucky because I'll talk to clients sometimes and I'm like, whoa, I have it made at home. And so, yeah, I agree. I don't think it's supposed to be hard. I don't think it's supposed to be hard work. I think you have to like learn how to communicate
And
and
that doesn't
really
have to be your
be
story.
mindful
I
of each
think it's
other's
so
needs.
easy
But
to
as far as it
when
being
people are
some really
like
difficult
I've
thing,
said
like,
that
I
before,
don't,
and people have
I
been like, "Oh,
haven't at
you
least
just
felt
wait,"
that.
or like, or they're like, "Oh, well, you wait till you're 20 years in." And I'm like, honey, that's not gonna be my story. At year 7, my husband came home yesterday and was like, get a babysitter for Friday night because we're gonna go to Putt Shack together and have date night. And so that's not gonna be my situation. Like, that's your situation, ain't mine. Like, we're constantly doing things together. Like, we're gonna take Rain to Disney World. Like, we paid off $100,000 in student loans last year. We've like bought 2 homes together. Like, that's not my situation. Like, we are a team over here. And I will give this marriage advice too. When you go to counseling, counsel with a couple that looks like you. Alex and I end up counseling our friends, our couple friends, anyways. But when we went to marriage counseling, we met with this couple, Rob and Robin, and they're actually here in Nashville. They actually have a podcast too, but they were just phenomenal because we were going through a period of having some contention with in-laws. And so Alex and I went one day and we were both just talking so crazy to each other. We were like, well, blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. And Rob and Robin were sitting on the couch and they looked at both of us and they were like, okay, are y'all done yet? And then Robin said, okay, Alex, what Jasmine was trying to say because she's the wife. And so she was telling Alex from a woman's perspective, she was like, what Jasmine was trying to say. Now, what it came out was very not what she should have said. But, and so then Rob goes, now, Jasmine, Alex was trying to say X, Y, and Z. And so then we were able to hear each other. And so anytime we've had any issues, we go and see Rob and Robin. And marriage counseling is so beneficial when you have a couple that mirrors you. So whatever your situation is, I mean, they're Christian, I mean, they're white. I mean, I don't care about that. Like, whatever. They're Christian. We share the same Christian values. And then they're a husband and wife. They've been married for X amount of years. And so I felt like they were a great choice for us. And it turns out they were. Like, they're still in our lives. 8 years later, we went to them when we were engaged. So, but yeah. And I also feel like it's okay to go to marriage counseling if you're feeling any type of way. Like, any type of way. If you feel bubbly, if you feel like intuition, something is popping off, like, I feel like it's okay to invite a third party in to say, to help you navigate it. And I think a lot of people just wait until it's like, oh, I have so much resentment. I don't even want to talk to him. I don't want to look at her. And so don't wait until you get full of resentment to start addressing things with your partner.
Wow, you are full of great marriage advice today.
Well, 14 years into this relationship, 7 years married, and a whole baby.
It's very inspiring.
A whole person that sits in the back seat and says, hey, girl.
Well, coming up next week is Rain Sweet. What is her middle name? Her whole name is so cute.
Rain Opal Sweet.
Rain Opal Sweet. Well, Jasmine, tell the people where they can find you.
So if you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram or the TikTok.
TikTok.
Or YouTube, or I'm on every social media channel you can possibly find. My handle is Jasmine K Sweet. My blog is jasminesweet.blog. And tune into the Sweet House. It is on every podcast network where you can listen to all of your favorite podcasts. So, yeah, find me any of those places, and I'm probably sharing wife life, mom life, business life, friend life, and just living my best sweet life.
Yes.
I want to ask y'all a question. If you could have one dream come true in the next year, what would it be?
Win the lottery. Once I win the lottery, y'all don't have to worry about a thing. Just tell me what y'all want. Start making a list now. For me, it would absolutely be financial freedom. I feel like, I started my business as an independent in 2018 and was like killing it. I would even say 2020 was one of my best years. And then since opening my business, I feel like the economy has definitely shifted and had a lot to do with that. But it's just been really hard for the last few years. And so I've just been praying heavily over financial freedom and working out of the hurdles I've had to face in investing in my business. So that would definitely be
one
mine.
of my biggest dreams is to be married and have a family. Like, I feel like my family is small, and I definitely want to grow the family and have some little cousins for my baby niece and my oldest niece to play with. And I want my mother and father to see me as a mother. So that's one of my biggest dreams, is to be married and to have a family.
That's sweet.
That is sweet. I love that both of you were so vulnerable about both things.
My dream would be, it sounds pretty vague, but I would love to have clarity on my future because I'm having not a midlife crisis at 35, but I'm about to turn 35. And, I'm 2 years into marriage, which doesn't seem like a long time, but at 35, you kind of feel like, do you have children? Do Chris and I want to bring kids into this world? Do we decide to try? Do we just call it a day? And I have breast cancer on my family history on both sides. So my doctor the other day recommended I go for my first mammogram, which I know is not a huge deal. Women over 40 are supposed to get them every year, but I'm kind of freaking out a little bit because it feels very real and scary because I know so many people our age who have been diagnosed with breast cancer really young. So I just, in the next year, would love clarity on what my future looks like. Sounds kind of vague, but also everything is so in flux right now and I can't really grasp a lot of it. And it would be a dream of mine to just breathe and not have 600 wandering thoughts going on at the same time. So if you have a crystal ball.
I don't have a crystal ball, but I do believe that we're not supposed to know the future because every day is supposed to be spontaneous enough for us to just get up and figure it out. If we knew the future, we wouldn't get up and do anything. Like, there'd be no motivation to get up and do what you're doing, which is your job, and being a great wife and also exploring your creative side with this podcast. And so I think, rest your thoughts in knowing that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's easier said than done, but rest your thoughts in that.
And as far as like marriage and motherhood, like it will happen when it's supposed to happen. I just remember like I was married for 5 years and I took my IUD out in October, like the end of October 2020. Yeah, 2020. And then I got pregnant with Rain literally 4 months later, but I went to my OBGYN at the beginning of that 4th month and he was like, "Well, you think you should start testing your ovulation?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't." And then literally like a couple weeks later, like I was pregnant with Rain. But I told myself at the beginning of the journey, like, I'm just, whatever happens, happens. I don't think I've ever shared this with you, Nicole or Gina, but Rain was actually born 11/21/21, and we buried my dad on 11/21/2016.
Oh, wow.
And I was actually in the hospital for 3 days. I was in there Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday at 2:02 a.m. She decided she was going to come into the world on the day that we buried my dad years prior. And so had I known, speaking of future, had I known that this day that was like the worst day of my life, like putting my daddy in the ground, would then be a moment of glory for me where I was able to witness the birth and like God's glory, like, man, like you couldn't have talked, like you won't appreciate those moments until they happen. And so you just have to go with it. You have no idea. Like 6 years from now, 20 years from now, you could have a son and he could be in the NBA. Your daughter could be a gymnast. Like you have no idea. Your granddaughter could be the next Simone Biles. And so I think you have to live with those forethoughts of it's all going to happen for us. It is. It's like it's all orchestrated in our favor.
I just think the future is always bright, even on our darkest days. And really, you just got to surround yourself with people who will remind you of that. Because sometimes when your mind isn't clear and it's murky with all those thoughts, like you just need somebody else to say, like, all right, calm down.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, companionship and like finding a good partner is so important. Like finding somebody who's gonna like remind you of that for the rest of your days and beyond. Because when they're gone or you're gone, they'll show up in mysterious ways too.
Well, thank y'all for having me on. I love it. I appreciate it. And I love what y'all are doing. And if I could have a dream come true, it would be for the Sweet House podcast to really take off. And I could have all kinds of people sharing their inspirational stories to give all of us a glimpse into what our futures could look like. And so that's why I asked about you guys' dreams and like what that looks like for you if you could have anything come true. That's what I want. I want a platform where I can take everybody with me. It's not about me selling stuff on Amazon and Target. It's about where I can bring everybody to the table.
That really sounds like the most incredible dream. And Jasmine, if anyone's going to make that dream come true, I know it's going to be you, girlfriend. But really, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. I know I speak for all of us when I say that we really enjoyed having you so much and can't wait to have you back. And hopefully you'll bring Rain next time. And thanks to all of our wonderful listeners out there who are staying true and loyal and keep on listening every week. Please reach out to us on Instagram at D-List Diaries and let us know what you thought of our very special guest, Jasmine Sweet, and who you want to hear from next. Bye.
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 To get people excited about Boost Mobile's new nationwide 5G network, we're offering unlimited talk, text, and data for $25 a month.
Forever.
Even if you have a baby.
Even if your baby has a baby.
Even if you grow old and wrinkly and you start repeating yourself.
Even if you start repeating yourself.
Even if you're on your deathbed and you need to make one last call.
Or text.
Right, or text the long-lost son you abandoned at birth.
You'll still get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile.
Forever!
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
Forever.
There are some football feelings you can only get with BetMGM Sportsbook. That's right. Not just the highs, the O's, or the no-no-nos. No. It's the feeling that comes with being taken care of every down of the football season. The feeling that comes with getting MGM rewards benefits or earning bonus bets. So, whether you're drawing up a same-game parlay in your playbook or betting the over on your favorite team, the BetMGM app is the best place to bet on football. You only get that feeling at BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas, now live across the DMV. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only, DC only, subject to eligibility requirements. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
At the UPS Store, we ensure your small biz stands out with a variety of high-quality paper stock options, banners, posters, brochures, and more. Most locations are independently owned. Product services, pricing, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Be unstoppable. Come into your local store today and get your print on.